Distinguished delegates, dear participants, I would like to thank the Energy and Resources Institute and the Carnegie Climate Governance Initiative for inviting me to share key findings of the Emission Gap Report and the Adaptation Gap Report and a perspective from the Asia-Pacific region. The international scientific community has reached a consensus that global net human-caused emissions, anthropogenic emissions of carbon dioxide, need to fall by 45% from 2010 levels by 2030 in order to reach net zero around 2050 and to keep the world within a 1.5 degrees centigrade increase, which will help prevent the worst climate damage. Parties to the UNFCCC Convention collectively agreed to work to reduce the gap between existing emission reduction plans and the actual reductions required to limit temperature rise compared to pre-industrial levels. But our current policies and measures are far off from this emission trajectory in order to limit temperature rise. Policies currently in place without further strengthening, UNEP's emission gap report suggests a 2.8 degrees centigrade increase. If we implement all nationally determined contributions plus a net zero commitment, it suggests an increase of 1.8 degrees centigrade. But this is not considered a credible scenario due to discrepancy between current emissions, near-term NDC targets, and long-term net zero targets. Globally unconditional and conditional nationally determined contributions estimate to reduce global emissions in 2030 by 5% and 10% respectively, if we compare emissions based on policies currently in place. National climate pledges under the Paris Agreement also point towards global warming of 2.4 to 2.6 degrees centigrade by the end of the century. In 2022, a review of climate emission in the Asia-Pacific of the Asia-Pacific region was developed by UNESCAP, UNEP, and UNICEF, and this was under the issue-based coalition on raising climate ambition on climate action. And here it's revealed that even if we implement all nationally determined contributions completely, our emissions will still be 16% higher than what is required to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees centigrade. This report recommends that we align nationally determined contributions with long-term, low-emissions development strategies, and we develop and implement deep decarbonization sectoral pathways for energy, transport, urban development, trade and investment, and we utilize new forms of technology and innovation, and we invest in nature-based solutions. Distinguished participants, on the adaptation side, the UN Secretary General says the Adaptation Gap Report makes it very clear the world is failing to protect people from the here and now impacts of the climate crises. We're already seeing the devastating impacts of flooding in South Asia, vicious summer heat across the northern hemisphere. The suffering we're seeing only at just 1.1 degrees temperature rise. Our region, Asia-Pacific, is home to 60% of the world's population, a third of global GDP, and it would require significant investment to protect our people and economies. Hundreds of millions of our people live in coastal cities threatened by rising sea level rise. So before I end, I would like to stress that countries in Asia and the Pacific need expedited energy transition. We need to move away from coal as fast as possible, as the region still emits 50% of global emissions, and we need to be supported by technology and finance. I thank you for your kind attention.